If you are shopping in the middleweight supersport category, often characterized as the 600s, your search will inevitably lead you to a Kawasaki dealership in India because the ZX6R is your only option. Of course, the tide may change in the future. You might have one more option should Honda introduce the tempting new CBR 600RR to our shores. If you want something mellower, something that's easier, more comfortable, then you could look at something like the Ninja 650 from the same stable, or something like the Honda CBR 650R if you want twice the cylinders. And looking over the horizon, there are vehicles like the Yamaha R7 and the ridiculous Triumph Daytona 660, which are going to sort of give you some bit of a promise. Now, this scenario reminds me of exactly 10 years back when the Daytona 675R was the only middleweight supersport option that you had in the country. A decade since, have things really evolved? Has the supersport genre in the middleweight segment really gone ahead by leaps and bounds?
With changing market demands, technological advancements and regulatory pressures, manufacturers have often been forced to adapt and evolve their offerings.
Apart from being middleweight supersport machines, there's another common thread for these two motorcycles. Both of them go against the convention and employ unconventional engine configurations when you compare it to the typical 599cc inline-4 configuration that we see in the supersport segment.
The Triumph Daytona 675 boasts of a potent 675cc three-cylinder engine, delivering around 126 horsepower. This power plant, while not as outright powerful as some of its competitors, offers a unique blend of torque-rich performance and a linear power delivery. Triumph's engineering prowess is evident in the Daytona 675's short-stroke design, top-notch components, and a refined tuning, resulting in exhilarating performance on both the street as well as the track. The engine's ability to rev freely and eagerly rewards riders with a thrilling riding experience, making it a favorite among enthusiasts seeking a dynamic edge.
In fact, this engine is so good that it has laid the foundation for all the 660cc entry-level Triumphs, all the way up to the 765, the Street Triple RS, and even the Moto 3 machines. In fact, that Street Triple RS, as we found out last year in our ride at Jerez, it's such a good track machine, such a potent track machine and a potent all-rounder that I'm not surprised it has led to the death of this track-bred Daytona. I know the Daytona 660 is not the successor to this motorcycle. That's...
In contrast to Triumph's Triple, the 2024 Kawasaki ZX6R inherits the legacy of its predecessors, featuring a 636cc inline-4 power plant. While the engine configuration has been the staple of the ZX6R lineup for years now, the 2024 iteration, however, fails to deliver significant advancements in power output or technological innovation, boasting of a mere 129 PS, which is humble for a gap of 10 years.
For 2024, in fact, the ZX6R loses a horsepower or two because it uses different camshafts with a lower lift profile, shorter duration, etc. compared to its predecessor. The gains are, of course, in the emissions department because this is now compliant with the stricter emission standards.
With no option for a larger engine displacement, the ZX6R relies on innovative solutions like these to meet emission requirements. This also includes a revised exhaust layout featuring a larger exhaust pre-chamber and a revised positioning for the O2 sensor closer to the exhaust ports, facilitating more efficient readings and cleaner combustion. It isn't a very fuel-efficient motor though, and we struggle to go beyond 13 km to a litre on our spirited rides, while the Daytona still managed about 17 km to a litre consistently.
The ZX6R offers a really respectable performance, no complaints against that. But it lacks the grunt, the peppiness, that aggression that you get with the Daytona. The low-end performance is much better on the ZX6R, but when it comes to the mid-range or the top-end, it doesn't feel as sharp as the Daytona. Both of these engines have a 15,000 RPM red line. The Daytona's engine will scream all its way to the red line, and even in the top gear, it managed to reach in that similar zone. However, for top gear on this motorcycle, after about 13,000 RPM, the performance just seems to taper down. This final 2,000 RPM or so, it just feels a bit hollow.
So while Kawasaki has made minor tweaks and enhancements to improve emissions compliance and fuel efficiency, enthusiasts may yearn for more substantial updates to keep pace with the evolving industry standard. It's quicker off the mark though and posts quicker 0 to 100 times than the Daytona by almost a second. The traction control also helps put down the power in a better fashion, and this Daytona has lost a bit of horsepower given its age now.
Cutting-edge tech, electronic wizardry, these are pivotal aspects of modern-day motorcycles. My decade-old Triumph Daytona 675, however, electronic aids are rudimentary. ABS, of course, is appreciated, but otherwise there is nothing really to write home about. No riding modes, no traction control, nothing of that sort.
The positive way to look at it is that the simplicity ensures a pure, unadulterated, and a more engaging riding experience. You're immersing yourself in the thrill of motorcycling without relying on electronic crutches. On the other hand, the 2024 ZX6R embraces the digital age, but without completely letting go of that old-school charm.
There's no IMU or any fancy electronics, so while that will keep the purists happy, it also makes sure that it ticks all the right boxes for safety, like ABS, traction control, which is primarily what you need for riding in our conditions.
The vibrant TFT display will let you cycle between 4 riding modes that alter power output and traction control intervention.
I think by not incorporating complicated stuff like slide control, wheelie control, etc., I think they're keeping things simple. It's not overwhelming for a lot of riders, which may be a good thing, especially for this particular segment, because you see, they may not be as big experts as the typical liter class buyer. So which I think is really good because it still ticks all the right boxes for safety, like I said, and at the same time doesn't rob the riding fun out of a machine like this. So I think it achieves a really nice balance. But I would like to know, what are your thoughts on this? So do let us know in the comments below.
When it comes to carving corners and attacking apexes, suspension and handling prowess play a crucial role. The Triumph Daytona refined this bit back then by offering 2 options: the standard bike with the Kayaba suspension and an R model which set the bar higher with its Öhlins suspension components and Brembo brakes.
The suspension is adjustable on both the models, the R as well as the standard 675, and it allowed riders to fine-tune the suspension settings to their weight, to their riding style, to their riding environment, etc. The Öhlins was of course better for the track, but also very challenging to overhaul in a small market like ours.
But whether it is riding on twisty mountain roads or tearing up the racetrack, the Daytona 675 remains a benchmark for riding dynamics even today, offering a precise feedback and predictable behavior that inspires riders to push their limits. In comparison, the ZX6R showcases evolutionary rather than revolutionary improvements in suspension and handling. While its Showa suspension setup offers a commendable adjustability and feedback, some riders may find its chassis dynamics lacking the finesse and the lightness of the Daytona 675. However, the monoblock Nissan brakes work exceptionally well, and even with the electronic aids limited to traction control and ABS, the ZX6R delivers a competent and predictable riding experience.
I think riders who are seeking a good balance between comfortable riding ergonomics and nice performance are definitely going to like the size of the ZX6R and the compliance of that suspension, whether you're taking it out for spirited rides or for leisurely commutes in the city. All of that, it will do quite well. It's only when you take it to the track where the ergonomics may or may not be to your liking.
When you opt for a liter class machine with over 200 horsepower, the intensity of the riding experience can get overwhelming. Handling such raw power demands a keen sense of control and physical stamina. This is where the middleweight machines provide a welcome alternative. They aren't as demanding, and even with lesser electronics, they are relatively easy to tame.
The ZX6R doesn't feel as light and nimble as the Daytona. In fact, it does feel quite big between the legs, but at the same time, the rider's triangle is surprisingly cramped for my height of 5 feet 8. I've often found that while trying to tuck down or whatever, my elbows are still sticking out. I'm unable to get that proper grip. But that said, while cornering, the large tank, the large chassis, they offer a substantial anchor point to be able to nicely lock in. So in terms of the cornering stability, that definitely helps.
The Daytona 675 excels with better build quality, and even the new models like the Street Triple RS feel more premium than this Kawasaki. And then there is the raw character, the agility, and the rider engagement which makes the Daytona enticing even today. The ZX6R has plenty going for it too. It shines with its advanced electronics, convenience features, and modern aesthetics, replete with LED lighting all around. But, and there is always a but.
The bottom line is the advancement in technology only feels a little incremental, nothing compared to what we've seen in the liter class.
The ZX6R still feels simple for its time, the way the Daytona did back in its day. But there is beauty in that simplicity.
It does the job of introducing riders to speed and improving their high performance skills both on the road and on the track as well. And that simplicity also shows in its pricing. It offers an excellent value proposition, just the way the Daytona did back in the day. In fact, if you were to compare the pricing of the outgoing Daytona back then versus the pricing of the ZX6R today, there's not much of a gap in terms of inflation numbers. You know, look at where the Street Triple is, where the previous one was, and where the RS is today. You will know what I mean. So from that perspective, I think even though the options are limited, even though you have only one option, it ticks all the right boxes. So I really don't care that there are no other options. As long as there is a Supersport middleweight machine that you can buy today, you and I should be happy.